Well, hi again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. And today we are going to be talking with a Major League veteran who not only played for 10 years and had a couple of playoff appearances, but also was a two-time NCAA World Series champion at the University of Southern California. Of course, I'm talking about Jim Barr. And you are watching the Sports Page with Bob Case. And I want to thank you for tuning in. And Bob, every now and then you come up with a special guest. And here we have one, a California kid who goes to SC, wins a couple national championships there with the great Trojan teams. And we'll talk about Rod Dedeaux and the success of the University of Southern California baseball. But then he goes on and very quickly starts pitching in the major leagues. And what a great career he had, for obvious reasons, playing for 10 years with the Giants, with the Angels, with the Giants again. There's a lot of things that we're going to get to talk about here today with Jim. But thank you again, Bob, for bringing him on with us today.
Yeah, you're welcome, Harper. And Jim, it's an honor to have you on this show. And, it's really interesting. Jim's teammate with the Giants, Darrell Evans, as Harper knows, is one of my best friends for my whole life. And he said to me, he said, Bob, why don't you get Jim Barr on there? He said, he was the ace of our staff in those lousy years in the Bay Area. And I said, oh, my God, he'd be great, an SC guy. And then I talked to Justin Dedeaux, who was another one of my best friends. All the years I worked for Casey Stengel, I was hanging around, going to the bars with Justin. And he said, Bob, and Justin, we had lunch, and you know what he said? I got to tell you this before we let Jim talk. He said, Bob, we won the national championship in 1970. It was the first of the 5 straight, which no other college team has ever done. Right. Now, which is very interesting, is Casey Stengel's best friend was Rod Dedeaux. And that's when I first saw Jim, when I went down with Casey to watch him at Boulevard Field before Dedeaux Field. And Casey won 5 straight world championships with the Yankees, a record that's never been broken.
Yep.
And Rod Dedeaux won 5 straight NCAA championships with SC, a record that's never been broken and never probably will be broken. So, but what Justin said to me, he said, Bob, he rocked me when he told me this, because I'm thinking of Tom Seaver and this guy and that guy and Randy Johnson, Steve Busby, He said, Bob, Jim Barr arguably is one of the best pitchers ever at SC. And he said, I'm going to tell you why. He said, Bob, in 1970, the first of our 5 straight national championships, we were down on our ass. And he said, we brought Jim Barr in relief, and he had 8 shutout innings in relief to beat this team. And we went further on, and the last game for the College World Series, Jim Barr came in and pitched 6 shutout innings and got the win. And Justin said that was as clutch of pitching as he's ever seen at USC, Jim Barr. So that's just at SC. And you can go on to his pro. He played 12 years in the big leagues, 10 years with the Giants. And, I was looking, he had poor luck. I mean, one year he was 8-10, and he had a 2.87 ERA.
Yeah.
And then another year he had a 2.74 ERA. And another year he had a 3.06 ERA. And another year he had a 2.89 ERA. And he threw 20 shutouts with that. And that was Darrell was probably the best player on that team. And I guess maybe Jack Clark, but they really were not a good team. So, and pitching up in Candlestick up there. But anyway, Jim, I can't wait to hear from you. We got so much to talk about. And it's just great to see. I saw Jim 6 years ago. We were just talking at a reunion. And it's great to see you again, Jim. So we can't wait to hear your stories.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, it was and Darrell Evans was a great friend on that team. We were we didn't really have a lot of strength, but Darrell Evans was the power hitter from the left-hand side, and he could hit that home run ball right down the line. We called him Howdy Doody because he looked like Howdy Doody, but that down there was called Evansville because he could pound that area pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, we're going to talk about your big league career for obvious reasons, your national championships. You've got 2 of them. I guess there's rings around somewhere in the house, right? You don't wear them every day. You don't wear them to the grocery store, but obviously being a part of the 2, the 68 and the 70 team. And as Bob mentioned, that 70 team kind of paved the way for some other great success there at USC. But let's go back a little bit, if you don't mind. Linwood High School, prior to that, I always ask guys, did you play a lot of wiffle ball back in the day, or did you have a tennis ball that you threw against a wall? What was your beginning? When did you really start to excel at the game of baseball? And were there other sports that you played that you go, you know what, I'm really good at basketball. I love playing soccer. I love I love football. What was it like for you when you were growing up?
I don't even remember what a soccer ball looked like when we were a kid. Everybody basketball, football, or baseball.
Did you have one of those red four square balls and you play wall ball or slicers or something like that? Was that a part of your growing up as a kid?
One thing we played probably the most was we had a little chain link fence on the driveway on the side of the house, and it was like about 4.5 feet tall. And we were paper boys too, so we had delivery bags. We'd take the delivery bags, hang them over the fence, and we use a tennis ball, and we'd be about 40 feet away, maybe not quite that much. And we'd throw to a hitter, and they'd hit the ball and see if they could hit it across the street and so forth. Well, that was how we played ball. That or we go down to the yard, and there might only be four of us. We'd say, okay, two on this team, two on that. Right field today is closed. If you hit the ball on the right field side, second base, you're out.
You're out. That's right.
Over the line, right?
Oh, yeah, and over the line a lot. And if you hit the ball on the other side, maybe the next day you say, okay, left field is closed day. So we had to teach ourselves how to go to right field with a pitch.
Nice.
So how we played a lot. It wasn't, a big thing. Travel ball nowadays is a big thing. But back then, you played your Little League season, and then when it was over, it was over. There was no playoffs or anything like that. So you just get ready to go back to school. Then during the season, I played football. And then when football's over, got ready to play baseball and did that for 4 years.
Yeah. Did you have a pitching machine and training lessons? And did you have plyometric classes and speed conditioning, all that kind of stuff that the kids have now? What did you do to get fast other than I ran, right? You just run.
Cool. Yesterday, we were talking about the players, about learning how to play the game and so forth. And what I think part of the problem is the kids don't really learn how to play the game themselves, because you have so many coaches on a team telling the kids what to do, play here, move over there, do this, do that. They don't really learn how to do it on their own because they have a coach telling them all the time what to do. Well, the only instructions I received, I had a gentleman that lived across the street from me when I was a little kid. And back then he played D-ball, and he was a catcher. And he'd come over and catch me sometimes. And I just remember this one time I was throwing, and he taught me control, do that. And he goes, okay, I want to see your good fastball right now. And so I wind up and I throw the ball. And just as I throw it, he drops his glove and catches it barehanded.
Ooh.
And he said, I said, your best fastball. If that's all the harder you can throw, we're ending this right now. And so I learned how to throw a little bit harder with control. So that was about the only teaching I really got.
Well, when did you realize that you had one, the desire, two, the coordination and the strength, the size, the speed, whatever it takes, and three, the want, that's more desire, the ability to throw a little bit harder without hurting your arm. You know what I mean? The toughness it takes to, gosh, if I really want to do this better, I'm gonna have to push myself and do a little bit more than what I'm used to. That doesn't always take a coach. That takes somebody it's in between your ears. That's usually you. Tell me a little bit about how that experience helped you.
I don't think I really, back then, again, as kids, we did there was one coach on the team, so you had to learn how to do things on your own. And trying to throw hard. I mean, the game nowadays, the kids see it, it's a power game. It's power hitting, power pitching. And the kids see that. They know that. They have guns. They have, the guns at every park on every pitch, and they tell you what it is. But we didn't have any of that, so we just did what we could do. If I was an 80-mile-an-hour pitcher, then I just threw 80 miles an hour. I didn't try to throw 81, 82. I just did what I could do. And then realizing that I could probably do more, I didn't really think about doing more. You just played the game and did what you could do at the time. And if you're playing somebody better and he won, then he's better than you. And wasn't like you went out there and tried to go, well, I'm going to do this a little harder. I'm going to throw a little harder. I'm going to throw more breaking balls, whatever, because of whatever the reason being. And so I think you learn more about playing the game that way and understanding yourselves. I just had a meeting with our pitchers the other day at Granite Bay. And I said, guys, when you're throwing, you have to do what you can do. If you throw 90 miles an hour, don't throw 91. If you throw 80 miles an hour, don't throw 81.
Right.
Throw what you can do, and get them to understand that, because it's the guys that try to do too much. You can, if you can throw 90 and go, well, I could throw 95. Yeah, well, they don't really care how hard you throw when you throw ball 4. So
Right. Or if you throw your arm out and then you can't throw for a year. Yeah.
That's right. I was lucky. My only arm problem I had was when I was with the Angels. 10 years with the Giant, after being with the Giants and went to the Angels, I had a slight tear of the rotator cuff. Couldn't pitch for a month. Came back, finished the season. Then the next year, it just didn't get any better. So I found out I had a torn rotator cuff. So I didn't have surgery because they said it was a 1-year rehab. And I went, 1 year? I can't do anything for a year? I said, no, I'm not going to have surgery. We'll work it out. So I worked on it, and it came back, and I pitched then for 2 more years. And I never had to have rotator cuff surgery until I was a coach at the high school after throwing batting practice so much. Then I needed surgery.
Yeah. Yeah. 200 pitches a day to the high schoolers, and they don't even thank you, do they? They don't even say, hey, thanks a lot, Mr. Jim. I really appreciate it. Right? They just go, come on, get it over the plate.
Hey, Harper, I don't ever remember any major league pitchers throwing batting practice to me in high school.
Yeah, how about that?
That
Hey, Jim, real quick, you mentioned Granite City High School. Tell us where you are now and what you're doing, so that when we refer to it a little bit later, or if you refer to it like the high school kids, and you've done that. So give everybody a little bit of an idea what what keeps you busy now.
Well, right now I'm at Granite Bay High School. This is my 17th year there. Prior to that, I was 16 years at Sac State. So I lived just about a half a mile from the high school, and I knew the coaches, knew a lot of teachers, because my daughter went to school there. So they asked me, when he found out I was quitting at Sac State, so he asked me if I wanted to come to the high school level. And I said, yeah, I'll help out, but I don't know if I really want to be a coach every day. Well, 17 years ago, I said that. Now I'm out there 6 days a week. I'm over that.
Yep.
Players to help. So it's fun. I enjoy the high school level. We've got a pretty good program there. The head coach has been there since the school opened in '96. So we've got a pretty good program, and I really enjoy doing that.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for your contribution and helping any kid, no matter who he is, give them a shot at playing to college or even going to school when they may not have thought otherwise. God bless you for that. I appreciate it. And so do all the other coaches and teachers and administrators that are trying to get some kids that, get a chance through baseball. First and foremost, thank you for that. You mentioned your daughters. You got 2 daughters, and they were really good soccer players. You mentioned you haven't seen a soccer ball. You yourself haven't, but your girls can play now.
Yeah, they both played pro soccer. My oldest daughter, she was 3 years with the Washington Nationals, and then my youngest daughter played 1 year with the San Jose Rays, and then the league folded, so they got to play, but they both coached a lot. In fact, one of them has been coaching kids now for quite a few years, and the youngest one is a middle school head coach for the soccer team there, and so that. They get a lot of soccer in, a lot of driving around with the kids. We have 5 grandkids, so taking them to different places and stuff like that. One playing soccer, they're all playing soccer right now. Plus the boys just had his first Little League game last night. So
all right,
going all over the place with them now, which I much.
How old is the Little Leaguer now? Is he 4 or 5? Is he just getting started?
He's 10 years old.
Oh, 10. Okay, excuse me.
Yeah.
Was that about the time you started playing? Maybe 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that age?
About the same time. I remember when I first started, it was called 10-inch. It was a ball a little bit bigger than a hard ball, and you played that. Then I think I played that for 2 years, then went to the hard ball. And never, even in high school, I never thought about playing good enough to be on an all-star team or playing good enough to go to the next level. Or even in high school, playing good enough so I can get drafted and play pro ball. Never thought about that. I just played the game. We're playing this summer. We played to win today. And then when I go to high school, I'm just playing because I've been playing baseball my whole life. I enjoy doing it. So it wasn't like, okay, if I do really good, then maybe I'll get drafted or something like that. Never. I can honestly say I never thought about that.
As a kid, who was your team growing up? Did you have a favorite team or a favorite player that you said, "Man, this is the guy"? This
Well,
is it.
probably growing up, it'd probably be the Dodgers, Sandy Koufax and Don Drysdale being a pitcher.
Yep.
I watched them and see what they were doing. So it was probably my Dodgers growing up. And then when my mom worked at Sears, and she was when I was in high school and so forth, and even in college, she was telling her co-worker, she goes, "I'll never let my boy play for the Giants." Well, then when I got drafted by the Giants and signed, I can't wait to pitch now.
Mom, why'd you say it like that? Gosh, now that you opened destiny into place. Well, first Dodger game. Do you remember how old were you? And was there something special about Dodger Stadium that you would say that this is really, really, this is the best of the best right here?
The only one I remember is going to the Coliseum in LA, where it was a short left field fence, which was about 275 feet tall.
Okay. You're dating yourself, Jim.
Oh, I know. That goes. One play I really remember was the one time I went to the game there. Wally Moon hit a home run over that fence, and I just always remember that. And just remember balls getting hit like they would have normally been a home run at any other park, but they hit that tall fence, dropped straight down.
That's
and
right.
And hurry and throw them out at second or keep them from getting a second. So it was kind of interesting to watch that.
And the Coliseum, of course, built 1932. It was not designed for baseball, but it was a temporary home while the Dodgers were moving from Brooklyn, and obviously waiting a year or two before it was before Dodger Stadium was constructed and finished, so that they could play in it. And as Bob knows, the Angels played their first couple seasons there while they were building their stadium.
So 4 years there, 62, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah.
The LA Angels. That's right.
Hey, did George Genovese sign you?
Yes, he did. Yes,
I knew it.
He signed a lot of local kids to the Giants. Yes, he did.
Well, before we go to the Giants, let's talk a little bit about your experience at USC. You played well enough in high school. How was the recruiting process? How did that work for you? In specific, what was going on? You were starting to become a really good player, and obviously as a pitcher, you're mowing them down, Jim. Tell me a little bit about your talent level, and when did things start working for you to where you go, I think I can make this at the next level. I can go to a college. I can make it and look at possibly being drafted, because all those things were realities for you.
Yeah, I probably didn't really start thinking about college until toward the end of my senior year. And what happened was I had a baseball picture of me in a baseball uniform. My girlfriend at the time lived about a half a block from the high school, and she had a picture of me in a baseball uniform on a table in the house. And a good friend of the family's was really good friends with Dato. He saw the picture, and then they started talking about, maybe he's pretty good. So Dato called one time. We set up a meeting, and I went with my father-in-law. We went down to see Dato, and I'll never forget when I first met Dato. I went, wow, he's the head baseball coach. He's got gray hair. He's about 80 years old. So that was like in March. Well, all of a sudden it got to be the end of May, and my dad was telling me, son, where are you going to school at? And I go, I don't know. He goes, you're going to be going to Compton JC if you don't get something done. So UCLA called, and they wanted me to come there. And so I went down and took the test, did all that, and supposed to hear. Meanwhile, Dato called and goes, Jim, we'd like to have you come to USC. And I go, well, I already told UCLA I'd go there. I'm just waiting to hear back from him. He goes, have you signed anything? I go, no. And he goes, well, if you haven't signed anything, you're still open. I'll give you a week to make up your mind. I said, okay. Well, 2 weeks go by, and I still haven't heard anything. So I called UCLA, and they said, oh, Jim, you just didn't score high enough on your SAT, so we can't push you through. Sorry. I said, okay. I took the phone, hung the phone up, dialed USC right away, and said, Mr. Dato, I'm ready to come to USC. He goes, good, we've been waiting for you.
Your fastball was good enough to get you into the University of Southern California, where UCLA needed an SAT score and a fastball. How about that? Right. Well, had you been to the campus before? I mean, have you seen where they played? Have you had you watched a game there previously? What was that like for you? Was this all brand new for you?
It was all brand new. We went there. We met at the office of the baseball coach and didn't walk around campus. Just talked to him. Met for him for about a half an hour, and then that was it. And so I'd never seen the field, the campus, or anything. And then when you see the baseball field firsthand, you think, "Wow, it's kind of little." Had a big tree down the right field line where the bullpen was, and so the players, you think, and the tree was called the big eucalyptus tree because we had a player on our team. His nickname was Uke because he was a big guy, and so they had the tree there, short right field fence. So you really learn how to pitch to move the ball around different ways because you didn't want guys hitting a 275-foot home run down the right field with the fence. So you learn how to pitch outside. So a lot of different things, but then the new baseball field got built, and that was pretty impressive. The locker rooms and everything they had there, and now I hear they're redoing it all again now too.
That's absolutely right.
They they already had an established program, and then you also throw in basically the Mike Garrett end of his career. OJ's just getting ready to show up there to see the football and baseball programs. Both are national powerhouses now. What was that like for you, knowing that you're going to a place they're pretty serious about their baseball and they're very serious about the football? Yes, the song girls and all that kind of stuff, Traveler, the band and everything, but this is for real. This is a high level experience where you're going to work. This isn't just you're not in high school anymore.
Well, it probably first hit as a freshman because back then there was a freshman team.
Couldn't play, right?
And
who was your coach? Tell me who your coach was.
Justin Data was the head coach.
He said you were the only good guy on the team.
A good team. Brent Strom, left-handed pitcher, was on the team. Okay. Randy Moss, who went to Long Beach, and we'd play him. But we had a lot of good players on the team. And like you said, Harp, with the football team and the baseball team reputation and so forth, as freshmen, we go, shoot, we got to do really good because we're going to be up there next year. And so it kind of caught on. And I would say probably my sophomore year, first year on the varsity, we had Steve Soggy, the quarterback for the football team, was our captain. We had Ron Drake, our starting third baseman, was the punter on the football team. Pat Harrison was the infielder that later became the head coach at ASU. So we had a lot of good players. So you knew you were into something when you started seeing some of these guys and the reputation of not only the baseball team, but the other sports, and you wanted to be recognized like them too. So that's probably when it first hit. And then when we go in 1970, that was my senior, but 68 was my sophomore year, get to go to the College World Series with them back then and win it. That was pretty impressive. And then when we get in 69, we had a down year. UCLA went. Then in 70, we had another good year, go to the College World Series, and we just had the type of team that not a lot of strength, but everybody did what they were supposed to do, and it was a fun team to be on.
Talk about that experience, because sometimes, boy, you could have a one or two powerhouse starting pitcher in your lineup and a couple of really good hitters, but that doesn't always, one or two great players sometimes doesn't beat 12, 13, 16 really good players that are playing well together. And it's a tournament, so you're playing every other day. Your starter is not going to pitch, but maybe twice in a week while you're there. What was that experience? And did you learn anything in the 70 team that the 68 experience helped you to get through some things that you wouldn't have been able to get through otherwise, just because of the experience and you'd been there before?
The 70 team, we had really good pitching. Brent Strom, myself, Steve Busby. We had good pitching. We weren't really a powerhouse, but we didn't make many mistakes. We did all the right things at the right time, hit behind a runner, steal a base when we had to, stuff like that. And then when it came time to go back to the College World Series, that was interesting because my first game I pitched, I pitched 7 innings, but about the 4th inning, I took a line drive off my pitching hand, right in the wrist, trying to catch a ball barehanded just out of reaction. Put ice on it every inning, come out. We lose that game. And so now we're in the loser's bracket, but then we won everything after that. In the semifinal game on Saturday, I pitched the last 8 innings in relief, and we won that game. I think it was 2-1 in 15 innings. Then that was on a Saturday. Then we had to come back on the championship game on Monday. Well, the interesting thing about that was after Friday's game, there were 3 teams left for the championship. Well, how are you going to have 3 teams play? So they did a drawing at home plate, and they had 2 tickets that said play. And if you drew the ticket that said play, you were playing on Saturday. Well, Justin drew the ticket, and to this day, he has never opened that envelope because
he has it at home. You're right. He has that ticket today.
Yep, he left it. He left it in his pocket because the other 2 coaches each drew the play, so they had to play Saturday night. Then the winner played us for the championship on Monday, and that game went, I think it was 14 or 15, and I pitched the last 8 innings in that game for the win. And like I said, it was such a great feeling because the type of team we had a Cal Meyer was our shortstop who signed pro ball, played I think 1 year minor league ball. And then pitching, we were really strong. So
it was Craig
my brother,
Perkins, your catcher.
Yep, Craig Perkins was my catcher. Yep, he did a good job too. He was a funny guy. He was the guy that he'd make him do something that was out of the ordinary. And as other players, we'd get on him about it. And so, how can you do that? You're the catcher. You're supposed to be the leader of us. So, he was good. And then what was really good about it was in 73 and 74, my brother was on 2 of those 5 teams also.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He got 2. And
your brother played at SC?
Yes, my younger brother was, he was 3 years behind me. I graduated in 70. He graduated, I think it's 73.
See, I always learn something on these broadcasts every time. I didn't know your brother played there.
Yeah, he signed with Boston, and I think he got about 3 months up with the big club and had an in fact, I don't know if it still stands, but he held the International League record for pitchers for games appeared in a season. He appeared in 84 games 1 year.
Wow.
And this is Mark Barr. People can go look this up, right?
Yeah.
Younger brother Mark.
And baseball must have been a big thing in the family, right? He's close. He's the little Weezer, right, with all of your friends, and he wants to tag along when you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, right? He's too small, but he's always there. He wants to be around his big brother, and eventually he ends up winning as many national championships as you do. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, talk about that. Justin said the last game for the championship, you pitched 6 shutout innings in that game, correct? And won the game.
8 innings.
So that was for the championship, the 8 shutout innings.
Yeah, 8 on Saturday night and then 8 on Monday night.
Unbelievable. That is unbelievable. To win the championship.
Yeah, I tell some of the high school kids now, pitchers, that they throw 2 innings and then they go, well, my arm's a little stiff. I need 2 or 3. I tell them a story. I go, no, it's only stiff because you are letting it be stiff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you remember, was there a struggle? Gosh, I just walked the leadoff runner here. This is the 4th inning of my 8 innings in. I know they're at the top of the order right now. Were there any holes that you had to dig out? Because as Bob said, there's some folks that said you were magnificent. You really you're on adrenaline, and there's no reason why you should be on the mound, but you're dominating.
But the only thing I remember was I kind of thought that, heck, I just pitched a couple days ago, and I can't get tired because I don't know who else we're going to bring in to pitch. So I just got to throw strikes and hope they ball at somebody. And that was because I wasn't a power pitcher. I mean, even at that time, I probably maxed out at probably 88, 89 miles an hour. Even when I played professionally for the 12 years, I was an 89 mile an hour guy, but I had good control. So I could put the ball. And that's what I tell coach pitchers nowadays too. I said, it's not how many hits you give up. It's not how many guys get on base. It's how many guys touch home plate. That's what counts.
Yeah.
So do what you have to do to keep him from touching home plate. Don't worry about anything else.
Good advice.
Greg Maddox said that he was asked by a reporter once, he goes, what was the toughest level of baseball for you as you were working your way up into the big leagues? He said, high school. And the guy goes, no, seriously, was it AA? No, he goes, no, high school. And the reporter says, how do you figure high school? He goes, it's easy. The kids aren't waiting on anything. They'll swing at anything. And so I can't throw a lot of stuff by them. I had to learn how to pitch better at the high school level in order for me to have the seeds and the root pitching his some assemblage of pitches. He needed to work on his accuracy, and that became a real key factor for him. Is there any portion of that for you? Did you learn how to become a pitcher when you were in high school, or did that happen when you were on that 70 national championship team at SC?
Probably when I was at SC. When I was in high school, I just, I had probably threw hard enough for high school where I was considered a power pitcher, plus a little bit of a breaking ball, but really good control. But I really probably kicked in probably when I was at USC, because now you're facing better. So I got to throw a ball. I got to make sure it's a good pitch to where they can't hit it hard or hit it to the outfield for a double or something like that. Yeah. Don't be afraid of letting them hit the ball. And then when I played professionally, that really became the way I thought, because I would probably average 3 strikeouts per 9 innings. That was how many strikeouts. I think I had 700 strikeouts in 2,100 innings, something like that. But I wasn't a power guy, so if I'm not going to strike very many guys out, I better make sure I hit good spots so they can't hit the ball hard. And that was my main concern.
And that, of course, the development of any pitcher has, hey, I don't care if you hit it, but I'm going to give you a pitch that if you swing the way I think you will, you're going to ground out to my second baseman, right? Exactly. Is that what you're trying to do? I'm forcing you. I'm going to give you a pitch to hit, but you're going to hit it, and we're going to get you out with it.
Exactly. Maybe a guy got a base hit, so he's on first. Well, now I got to really make sure I keep the ball down to the next guy, in or out or whatever, but keep the ball down so he hits a ground ball and we get a double play, and now we got 2 outs. So I really learned that once I got to pro ball.
Well, speaking of pro ball, you were drafted a couple of times, and I know your mother said, I don't want you to go to the Giants, but San Francisco ended up being the place for you, right?
Yeah, it worked out really good. I think I'm still the only person to ever be drafted 6 times. And you look at people now, how you get drafted 6 times. Well, back then they had a January draft to go along with the June draft. If you were drafted in June but didn't sign, then you were eligible for the January draft. So at that time, at the end of your sophomore year, when you're first eligible, so at the end of my sophomore, middle of my junior, end of my junior, middle of my senior, into my senior year. And it wasn't because it was money. In fact, I can only remember one team, and that was the Giants that I signed with. About anything about money, it was like, just my dad told me, he goes, you got to make a choice. He goes, you got a scholarship and a good program at USC, or go to pro ball. And so I wanted to finish my college education. I enjoyed pitching and playing at USC, so I went that way till I was senior, and then I had no place else to go.
Yeah. Well, you got your degree, and congratulations on doing that. Was there a time that you're thinking, baseball, professional level, that's not for me. I better start thinking about what I want to do when I'm done and I have to hang up my cleats. Was that ever a part of the academic portion of what you were doing there at SC?
No, I never thought that. In fact, I never even thought about playing pro ball. It just, when the season was over and they said something about, well, the draft is going to be here pretty soon, you might get drafted. Oh, really? Okay, cool. We'll wait and see what happens. So I never really thought while I was playing at SC about doing good enough, or if I do better, I'll get drafted. I never thought about playing pro ball at that time.
Come on, Jim. Are you trying to tell us that you didn't have an opportunity with your agent and with your representatives and all these other people and your uncle, they weren't all out there to get you to sign on the dotted line and get you to be a bonus baby? There wasn't any of that?
Nope, none of that. In fact, I the only one. I didn't have an agent. I sat in on every meeting. In fact, my only real conversation with any of the scouts that came to my house, it was after my junior year, the Pittsburgh Pirates scout. And it's funny how you remember things. You remember things that are really, really good or really bad. Well, his scout's name was Jerry Gardner,
Yep.
and he comes to my place, and they drafted me and they want to sign me. And he's talking, and he goes, I think we can improve on your breaking ball. Your fastball is not real hard, but I think we can make that better. And a little bit this and that. The first thing I wanted to say was, if I can't do any of that, why did you draft me?
Yeah, yeah.
So I
Hey, Harper, I want to say something.
Please.
Jim said that he pitched 89 miles per hour. Now, this tells you how times have changed. Everybody's 95, 94. I can just tell you this. I was very close to baseball, and I followed Jim's career. I always visualized him as a fastball pitcher. So he said he downplays that, but I think he was a fastball pitcher. It's just they weren't all throwing 95 miles an hour back then. Am I right in saying that or not?
No, you're exactly right. If I threw back then, I didn't throw a lot of pitches. I'm probably average. If I threw a 9 inning game, I'm going to say I averaged probably 110 pitches over 9 innings. Not a lot of pitches because I had good control. I was either giving up a hit or getting it out on the first, second, or third pitch and not having to go 3-1, 3-2 to a lot of hitters and throwing a lot of pitches. So, yeah, I was a fastball pitcher, not because I threw hard, but because if I threw 110 pitches, probably 85 of them were all fastballs, and then I threw a breaking ball and a slider. Changeups weren't real big back then. You just learned how to change up off your breaking ball, change up off your fastball a little bit, but straight hard changeup like they throw now, that wasn't very big back then.
Well, and I'm a guy that says you can't teach what you don't know. And if nobody's showing you how to throw a sinker or, a 12-6 curveball and you don't get the grip, you're never going to learn how to do it, right? You're just going to go with, all right, I'm going to have a 2-seam and a 4-seam fastball, and I'm going to throw a slider or something that breaks. I got to do that. I'm going to take something off it to make the ball move, right? Isn't that part of what you do?
Well, my first spring training I went to, Larry Jansen was the pitching coach. And I was in a game against the Cubs during spring training, and they were hitting me pretty good and everything. I came out of the game, and Larry goes, "You're going to have to learn how to throw some balls and not just all strikes." And I said, "Okay." And so he goes, "Let me teach you how to throw a sinker." So he taught me how to throw a 2-seam sinker. So I worked on that a lot. And that was, the Yankees were a good example. When I was with the Angels and had to face the Yankees, they would throw 7 to 8 left-handed hitters up against me, and the only right-hander would be sometimes the pitcher. The DH wasn't back then. Well, it was in the American League.
Yeah.
I faced one right-hander and 7, 8 left-handed hitters. Well, I throw my 2-seam sinker, and if I threw 60 pitches to the left-hand hitter, probably 50, 55 of them were all 2-seam sinkers.
Really? Wow.
I just wasn't real good at throwing a slider inside the left-handed hitters. And my 4-seam fastball wasn't really a powering fastball. So I learned how to throw a 2-seam sinker and throw it on the outside corner. And I just told my center fielder, Rick Miller, I just said, "Hey, Rick, just be ready to run a lot today because I'll be pitching these left-handers away. So you're going to be getting a lot of action."
Yeah.
He was a great fielder, that guy.
Yeah, he was. He was very good.
Well, coming out of SC, you end up getting with the Giants, and you weren't with them very long before you get called up. What was that experience like for you? You end up signing with them, and what was the first thing? Did they say, "Are you going to go to rookie ball or single A"? What was the order and the protocol for them with you? Because it wasn't very late. Well, was it in the August that you get called up in 71?
July 31st.
July, okay.
Yep, before August 1st to be eligible for the playoffs. So Kingman and I got called up on July 31st. And it was probably when I first signed about going to spring training, this George Genovese told me, he goes, "Well, I think we can get you $10,000. And I go, "Well, not so much." He goes, "But I think you could probably go to Double A." And I go, But he goes, I don't know if I can get you that at Double A. I go, well, I'll take whatever you want to give me, but I'll go to Double A and not Single A. So I went to Double A to start with, pitched it 2 months there, finished the season, then went to spring training, and that was really interesting. My first big league spring training. Well, I was at the attitude that I'm going to spring training and be ready to start the season. So when I went to spring training, I was ready to throw 3 to 5 innings very first game spring training in February, because I wanted to work on things. I didn't want to have to go to spring training to get in shape. I wanted to go to spring training already in shape and now having to fine tune the way I did things. So that was good. And I got cut. And then Kingman and I, we were in Spokane, Washington. That's a funny one too, that we're up there playing. We're losing the game 15-5. And I was the closer at the time. And Jimmy Davenport was our manager. And about the 7th or 8th inning, and we're losing 15-5. And he goes, Barr, go down and warm up. I go, warm up? It's not my game. He goes, yeah, you're going to go and pitch. Okay. So I go down and warm up. I come out the pitch. And the first guy I got to face was Parker, first baseman. And Jimmy Davenport comes out to me and he goes, okay, here's what's going to happen. If they get 5 hits in a game, he wins a color TV. He's got 4 hits right now. He said, give him a pitch to hit. He'll get a base hit. He'll get his TV. He'll let you pick him off first base and everybody wins. But first pitch I threw to Parker was kind of outside, and I thought, nah, I got to get it more over the plate so he can hit it. So the next pitch I throw over the plate, he hits a home run to right field, and as he's rounding first base, he goes, Jim, I didn't mean to hit it that far. We lose the game 16-5. Well, the game was over. Go back to the hotel, and I get a call, and it's from the Giant. Kingman and I got called up that night to the big club.
But, how about that?
Wow.
Well, congratulations. So there's Dave here on the left. And I did not know this until I started doing my research on you, Jim. I did not know that George Foster was a San Francisco Giant. But you guys traded him in 71. That same year that you get called up to the big team, he gets traded to the Big Red Machine, and worked out pretty well for him. Yeah,
real good. He was good.
Did you have him in Double A or Triple? Where was your, or was he with the big club by then?
He was, I think he was with Triple A because I got called up before him. So I think he came up slightly after me.
Okay.
Did he get traded in 71 or was it during the season in 72?
Let me double check. I'm going to look real quick. But there's a picture of Dave left on the left. So was that a good thing for you just to have somebody that was on the club that you kind of talked to? And maybe you weren't great friends at SC. Maybe you were the best of friends. I don't know. But was it nice to have one of your teammates that's also with you there with the Giants?
Yeah, it was. Dave and I were teammates together at SC and really good friends and so forth. But probably my closest friend was probably Don Carruthers. And he got called up earlier in the year, so he was there at the clubhouse. When I walked in through the double doors, he was right there waiting for me and greeted me, told me everything where to go. And I mean, I'd never been in the clubhouse. I didn't know where my locker was.
Was Eddie Logan there then?
The what?
Was Eddie Logan the equipment guy then, or Mike Murphy, or Eddie Logan?
Yeah, Logan was there for all my 10 years.
Yeah, he was with the New York Giants. Did you know that? Back in New York.
Logan was a good guy.
Yeah.
Biggest thing was everything. We'd sign baseballs all the time, for delivery guys or whatever, would sign baseballs. And he would always say, as soon as you walk through the clubhouse doors, he'd go, sign. So constantly, that was Big Eddie's big thing. But yeah, he was a great guy.
Jim, I just looked it up. On May 29th, 1971, George Foster was traded to the Cincinnati Reds for Frank Duffy and Vern Geisert. Okay. So he was there just for a little while. And again, I didn't know that he was the man there, but you had some other superstars. Obviously, Big Mac is a gigantic man. I mean, you're a big guy too, but I mean, Willie McCovey was something else now, and he's up there. Was it nice to, have him and another guy named Say Hey, right? You had some great players. Bobby Bonds was on that team. Chris Spire was just a young shortstop coming up. There, Dick Dietz, if I'm not mistaken, there were some really good players, and you end up winning the division.
Yes. Yeah, we won the division, and then we had to play the Pirates at the time. And at that time, I think it was 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3 or 3. I couldn't remember. But the Pirates at that time, end of the season, they had a couple guys that were just average players during the season. During the playoffs, they just went off pitching. Yeah. And so, yeah, they were really good. And we go back to Pittsburgh, we had to play, and they said we won one back there. So now we're tied. I think it was 2-2 at best out of 5, 2-2. And Marischal couldn't pitch and Perry couldn't pitch because they had just pitched 2 days prior in San Diego because we had to beat San Diego to win our division. So they both pitched then, so they couldn't pitch against the Pirates. And so we get down to where we have to play another game. And they said, Jim, if we would have had to play that game, you would have been the pitcher. I went, oh, great. Thanks.
Was Sam McDowell there when you were there, Jim?
Yes, all Sam, Sudden Sam. Yes, he came over. We got him for in the Gaylord Perry trade.
Right.
Yeah, that was 72 or 3, if I'm not mistaken. But if you don't mind, you go from a national championship, 2 of them actually at SC, and then you win the division, you get in the playoffs, you lose to the Pirates in the elimination game, right? A 5-game series, you lose the 5th. But things are pretty good. The 49ers are playing. You're a year or 2 away with the Warriors from winning an NBA championship. The city of San Francisco, the Bay Area, we had the Raiders. You had what was going on there in Oakland, just across the bay. It's a pretty good sports town for a little while there in the early 70s, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was fun. The one thing that was probably a lot of people talk about Candlestick and so forth, but I always took it that was my home park. So I didn't mind pitching to Candlestick. In fact, I liked it because it was my home park. I got to pitch at home. But the one thing that was sometimes difficult to understand was we play a game and there might only be 2,000 people in the stands.
Yeah.
I remember pitching one game one time and there was less than 1,000 people. And that's when you hear this one guy way up underneath the overhang, and he's yelling your name and so forth. And you can hear him because there's only 1,000 people in the ballpark. But that was the hardest thing to accept, was not having too many fans at the ballpark. Then you go on the road and play in nice ballparks where they have 30, 40,000 people. So it was different, a lot different.
What was the issue there? Obviously, the weather. Right, you go with even if it's a 4:00 start, it's going to be freezing, and you're going to need your winter parka because the wind kicks up. How would you have resolved that, knowing what you know today? Is there a way to get more people in the stands?
I think you had to really, really win a lot because of the weather for the stands, for the fans in the stands. It was cold and windy. In fact, I asked Pete Rose one time, talking to him, and I said, Pete, how come you guys play so good when you come in here to play us? And he goes, we take the attitude that the weather is so bad here, we're just going to come in, kick the shit out of you, and go home.
Hey, Harper, with Darrell Evans, when he got called, he got called up in 69 and 70 at the end of the year. In 70, we went up with his whole family to Candlestick Park. I'll never forget it, to watch the Braves with Hank Aaron play the Giants in 1970. I'm telling you, there was no more than 800 people in the stands, and we had blankets over us, like huge blankets, because we were freezing to death up there. It was unbelievable. I've never been to a baseball game like that in my life.
I remember a couple of times I went there, the event going on the field. I think the Beach Boys played one time after our game. They were setting up on the field, so we go in after the game, shower, then go up into the stands and watch a concert. Well, I remember going up in the stand and go, holy man, it is cold up here. And then those doorways, if you left that door open, the wind would just howl through that door. So everyone's yelling, close the door, close the door.
Well, I'm sure the Beach Boys didn't want to play because, your fingers are cold and they're only wearing, light gear. They had those uniforms back in the And the checkered shirts or the striped shirts, and they're not dressed for baseball.
We had 5,000 people there for our game, which was a good crowd. Then for the concert, they had 50,000 people.
Oh man, taking a back seat, right, Jim? But you played well. In 72, I got a picture here. There's a card they made of you. You've got your 41 consecutive outs that you get. Is that because of your control? Is that because you just really learned to accept your role at the major league level and go, you know what, I can pitch here, I belong here, and I'm going to show you? Was there something else? I mean, this is one of those records that that's a worthwhile achievement. Nobody could get past first base with you for 2 games. My goodness, what a great accomplishment you had.
Well, I think because of the type of pitcher I was, control pitcher and so forth. I remember one of the very first things when first game I came in to pitch, and this is debatable. One of our coaches at the high school level says, "Oh, your first appearance in the big league was against a Pirate. You pitched 2." And I go, "No, I didn't pitch 2 innings. I pitched 1 inning. Or I pitched 1 out. I only had to get 1 out. Now it was Willie Stargell, my first guy I ever faced." Oh. And I remember, you go out to the mound. Of course, I almost tripped and fell on my face crossing the foul line going out to the mound because I was so nervous. And I get out there and they talk, do this, do that. Okay. And after everybody, Dick Dietz looks at me, and I'd already gone spring training, so I knew the players because I knew them from spring training. Dick Dietz looks at me and he goes, "If you hit my target, throw the ball right at my glove, we'll get him out and get out of here." I said, "Okay." And so I had him 2-2 count. I threw a fastball inside, which is not very often I do to left-handed hitter, and he took it for strike 3. That was the end of the inning. I went into the dugout, and Charlie Fox goes, "Okay, that's good. You're done for the day." And I want to go, "Oh, thank you. I'm so nervous."
This is a Pirate, the 71 or 72 team, because I was going to say Roberto Clemente was there, Tim Foley, Dave Cash, Manny Sanguillen. You mentioned Stargell. I mean, this is a loaded team. This is a very, very good, and they beat you in the playoffs in 71, so this is a good lineup.
Yeah, it was the 72 team, and in fact, in that Pirates game, I struck out Roberto Clemente to end the game.
Jeez.
And what was really kind of funny about it was the next day in the paper, I cut it out, and I'd show a picture to different people. I go, "Look how good I was. I could throw left-handed and strike out Roberto Clemente." Well, the reason being was they reversed the negative in the paper and it showed left-handed.
So he was wearing number 12 and you were still wearing 33, but it was put in backwards. That's pretty funny. You didn't have that. The team itself, and then the accomplishments that you had, you win the division your first year while you're there. Things are looking good, but little by little, Foster leaves. Willie Mays isn't going to be there for very long. There's some other movement that is made. You mentioned Charlie Fox is your manager. The ownership changed as well, and the club wasn't making a lot of money. Was there any part of that affected your play, knowing full well that we're playing in an empty stadium and nobody else is empty, at least not like this? There's something wrong. There's something amiss here in San Francisco. Did you notice that from a business perspective at all?
Well, from a bit, I don't think anyone thought about it as a player anyway. At least I didn't. As a business, it was just like, wow, man, we got to really win every game we play here, or else the people aren't going to show up because we're only drawing, on a good day, on a Saturday, on a good day, we might get 5,000 people. And so it wasn't because you thought about, well, club this, the club that, they're not doing this for us, or ticket prices are doing. Nobody thought about that. It was just about playing. So,
okay. Well, is it the Horace Stoneham was the owner when you first get up there, and then the Lowry situation a couple years later? How did that transpire, and was that a part of, did you have to deal with any of that with your negotiations and your contracts to where, hey, listen, there's some things that are going on here you need to know about?
Yeah, you kind of went through your mind because it happened, I don't know, 74 or 5, somewhere through there. But the team was going to be moved to Toronto. they were going to move the team to Toronto, and it was like, oh my God, when's this going to happen? Are we going to know before spring training or whatever? And then all of a sudden at the end, Lurie and Bud Herseth came in and bought the club and kept us in San Francisco. So that was a big relief because I don't think anyone really wanted to leave. But even though we weren't drawing a lot of fans or the ballpark or anything, you still, San Francisco is our home ballpark. So that's what we wanted, where we wanted to be. And it was, it did enter your mind a lot, but it was during the winter, not so much during spring training because it was already settled.
What was the? I mean, you're not going to get a new stadium, although they have one now that was rebuilt and redesigned. This is one of the few examples of a dual complex, meaning you could do football and baseball. But it wasn't the same as what Jack Murphy had, what they built in Seattle, what they had in St. Louis, what Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, of course, Shea Stadium. They were Atlanta, Fulton County. They were all the same round stadium, and you would take the guts out for baseball, and then you could put bleachers in and move stands so they're much closer to the field or literally on the field for football games. You had that same capability with the 49ers, but the chain link fence, some of the other things that were just a part of it, it wasn't designed by the same group, although you had the same intention. If you could redesign Candlestick, would there be anything that you would say, now this made no sense at all for us? For example, the right field clubhouse for the visitors was 350 feet away from where the dugout was. You know what I'm saying? They made it so that it was very difficult for the road team, where your clubhouse, all you had to do was go from the dugout, you go down 20, 30 steps, and you're in your clubhouse, you're in your locker room. Are there any things that about the design for Candlestick that you go, what were they thinking when they put this together?
Well, like you said, the opponent's clubhouse, the clubhouse was right next to our bullpen. They had to go right through our bullpen to get to that door and go down the runway. The right field bleachers having to move and so forth. That, like exactly like you said, the chain out in left center. It was, and then not only that, but the surface. As baseball players, that ball bounced pretty good on that surface because it was just asphalt with no padding, and then the AstroTurf laid on top of it.
Yeah,
so about hard, and being a football player landing on that stuff, I don't know how they did it. And then you go to other ballparks, and they have their turf was either softer or grass. One thing that was nice, when I came back to the Giants in '82, they'd put the grass back in Candlestick, I think in '81. And I remember coming back after spring training in '82, and first day we're out there practicing before the season started, and we're sitting on the ground doing exercises and so forth. And it just rained the day prior. And everyone goes, oh, man, we're going to get all wet. You sat down on the grass and got up and you were dry because the water, they did it such that the water would soak all the way through and it wouldn't be wet up on the surface. And that was one of the best things they did when they put grass back in Candlestick.
Weren't there issues, though, with the tide? And sometimes the water would seep through and it would be really soggy if there were tide issues with the bay right there. Is that, am I mistaken with that? Because I know I played in Candlestick from a football perspective, and there was one time where it had rained and everybody was saying, oh, it's going to be, the tide is high and it's wet anyway, so it's going to be really soggy.
I don't remember too much about that.
Okay.
The only other thing was sometimes the fog. The fog sometimes got bad enough. I remember one game we played, Jack Clark was playing right field, and Greg Luzinski with Phillies hit a fly ball to right. Well, it was hit such that the right fielder Jack had to come in to catch it. So he comes in to catch it, and he can't see the ball. The next thing you hear is the ball rattling around in the right field bleacher. You go, you got to be kidding me. All right out.
Yeah. Oops. That was a bad moment. That's bad for baseball when you can't see. I loved when I was young. Bill Singer was on the mound, and Vin Scully was talking, and the Giant Dodger game was on, and everybody had to back out because they got a piece of dust in their eye. Almost every batter at one point or another. But there was the infamous hot dog wrapper that would just wrap around home plate forever, and you couldn't get rid of it. And there would always be another one as soon as they get it cleaned up. Because there was no one in the stands, was that something that you guys had some fun with every now and then, just going, gosh, this place is a mess?
Oh, yeah, because our bullpen right there along that right field wall, that concrete wall, was another subject too. But blow around the bullpen down there and go down going toward the dugout, and sometimes from the dugout going down toward the bullpen. So yeah, the paper would always be blowing around out there. If you were taking batting practice, and batting practice would start around 5 o'clock. If you were taking batting practice at 5 o'clock and it was windy, by the end of the game, it was going to be really peaceful. If it was peaceful at 5 o'clock, you go, oh, God, we're going to have wind by the end of the game.
So you could predict the weather and the air speed. Usually by the time 4:30, 5 o'clock, you had a pretty good indicator, right?
Exactly. That's right.
Well, they say that, you may not like my ballpark, but it's my ballpark. What would you say helped you? How did you take advantage of the weather like that? How would you say that, you know what, I'm going to make this the best I possibly can. I'm here for a reason, and I'm going to be the best pitcher I possibly can be. I'm going to take advantage of the situation rather than let it take advantage of me.
I don't know if I really thought about pitching differently. Well, about the only park would be Wrigley Field. Pitching differently in one ballpark versus your home ballpark. I just remember in your home ball at Candlestick when it was AstroTurf, and said, well, the AstroTurf was so hard, the ball would roll through the hill. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to pitch up in the zone and let them hit fly balls that the wind was going to carry out for a home run. So you didn't really change your style. Just hope that the way it was is the way it was, and it's the same for both teams. But the only other ballpark would probably be Wrigley Field because of if the wind was blowing a little bit and it's a short porch a little bit, you just had to really be careful of getting the ball up in the air. So any other ballpark, I mean, I pitched good in St. Louis. I didn't mind Atlanta. Houston was okay. San Diego at that time, the fences were back further than they are now. That was fine. So any other ballpark, not really much of a problem.
Well, there's a picture of you here throwing in Wrigley, and was it because it was a shorter field? And did it feel shorter because the stadium itself was kind of really enclosed and on top of you? Was there something about the aura of that, or was the mound a little bit lower? Tell me why Wrigley was a place where you would want to pitch a little bit differently.
Well, I think exactly what you talked about, the fans being closer. That was one thing. It was kind of I didn't mind it. I kind of liked it where the fans were just right up behind you in the bullpen. You sat in the bullpen chairs, and the people sitting in the first row of stands, their knees were right up against your back to the wall right there. And that, with, I guess, the ivy on the walls, and the fans all being so close, it just made it feel like it was compact more so than normal. But and then like I said, sometimes the ball carried out of there. So you pitched a little bit differently there, and like in Boston too. Boston, I had to pitch the only time I pitched in Boston with the big green monster out in left field was, oh man, don't let them pull the ball. They're going to hit it off the monster or over the monster. Well, then you start pitching away from the way you pitch. And that was me. So those are probably the only two ballparks, but I didn't mind pitching in Candlestick. Yeah, naturally I'd like to pitch in St. Louis or Houston or someplace where it was in the 70s or 80 degrees and warm and not a lot of people watching and so forth. But still, I had to wear the Giants uniform. I wanted to wear that uniform. I'm pitching at home. I had friends, so I'm going to go out and make the most of it and not worry about, the ballpark and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what is it? 4 or 5 years into your career, Seattle gets a team. Now you've got Colorado with an organization. I think everybody says, hey, just keep the ball down in Colorado, and you got to, because your ERA is going to just jump all over the place. If you were a starting pitcher for the Rockies, you'd just say, hey, my ERA is only 4.9. It would not keep you in San Francisco, but that's really low for that specific stadium with the way the dry air is and the way the ball travels. So you mentioned the two oldest fields in the league, obviously Wrigley and Fenway. If you don't mind me asking, were there any places that you go, gosh, I cannot believe I'm a second, third, fourth year guy and I am pitching in Fenway, or I am pitching in Wrigley Field? Did you ever get goosebumps and go, gosh, I didn't even know if I was going to get to play in college, and now I'm playing in the finest ballparks in the world?
I think I probably thought that way about Wrigley, and then when I went to the American League, my first year in the American League, and then going to Cleveland, had the same type of atmosphere as Candlestick, and then being able to pitch in Boston, the Green Monster, and so forth, and statues out in center field. So there are certain things about certain ballparks you hear so much about, and then you get to go to them first time. You just go, oh, man, that's really cool. I like that.
I was in Cleveland back in Municipal Stadium for a football preseason game, and the baseball field was still intact because it's August, so the season's still going on. And I sat in the dugout, and I asked one of the security officers that was there, and forgive me for giving the story. I just wanted to really quick. I said, "Excuse me, sir, do you mind me asking, is this the home or the visitors dugout that we're sitting in right now?" He goes, "Oh, this is where the visitors are. The Indians are over on the first base side. This is the third base dugout. This is where the visitors are." I go, "So I'm sitting where Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle or Norm Cash or just name it, Bob Feller. I'm sitting in the same spot where one of these guys is." And he goes, "Hadn't thought about that, kid, but yeah, you're right. This. Yeah, many of those names that you mentioned, because the stadium was so old, and you got to play in Detroit and in Cleveland, and obviously the original Yankee Stadium, right before they rebuilt it."
The two ballparks, probably the one ballpark I thought was probably worse than Candlestick, and that was Metropolitan Stadium in Minnesota.
Oh, how about that? Yeah.
It was terrible. And what did was the manager was, well-known guy, I can't think of the name right now, but the bullpens, you throw them from right to left, depending on how you look at it. The pitcher's on the mound, and he's throwing north. You go down the bullpen, and your bullpen, the pitcher's throwing south. You go, wait a second, why is my bullpen, their bullpen is exactly the way they want to throw it, but our bullpen is just the opposite. So I complained to the Players Association. Next time we went in there, they reversed the bullpens, and I had them throwing the same way. I'm like, well, that's the way it should be. Then the only other field was Detroit, going to Tiger Stadium, and their dugouts were like about 4.5 feet tall.
Yep.
Over to walk in the dugouts, and then you had to go up a ramp, and you had to duck underneath a 4-foot beam because the stands were right on top of you. You had to duck underneath this beam to go up into the clubhouse, and it was just such a tight feeling in the dugout and everything. And then we had to go in there one time when it was cold, and they had the heaters blowing in the dugout. Well, the dugouts weren't that big, and it would get too hot, and then you got to go out on a cold field. That was one of the worst. Tiger Stadium wasn't really too good. But
Jim, when you'd sit in the dugout, you're a big guy. Your head could hit the top of the dugout, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You know why? Because guys were 5'7" when they made that field.
Yep.
I believe that.
Yeah, I was just going to say Chicago's Chicago Stadium, where the Blackhawks played hockey and where the Bulls played. When they rebuilt that, now it's the United Center, but there was a downstairs dressing room that all the players and all the basketball guys would go, we hit our head on that final step to get into it. Boston is very small. It's a tiny little clubhouse, isn't it? Even for the home team, it's and the door jamb is 6 feet. So a bigger guy has to duck down and feels like he's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Shaq all the time. They're always hitting the top of their head.
Wrigley Field was worst.
Really?
The playing field, in order to get to the clubhouse, you got to walk up about 30 flights of stairs, then into the clubhouse. And the clubhouse was an old steel lockers. They had 5 shower heads, but only 2 or 3 of them worked. And they had the hot shower room with the board running across the wet floor. And that was just interesting to see when that was going to go off one time. Well, it was all the time until Reggie Smith took a camera crew in there at the end of one season and took a camera crew in there and took cameras of everything. Said, "This is how bad this clubhouse is." Well, then after that, Cubs redid it a little bit, made it a little bit better. But I was pitching a game in Candlestick, and we had a little bit of a brawl. Milt Pappas and myself weren't pitching very good, and so things happened where there was fights. So now 3 days later, we had to go back to Chicago. Well, we go back to Chicago. My dad was an LA detective, and he had to go back to Chicago on an extradition one time. And it just so happened that we were back there playing at the same time. So I got to meet a handful of Chicago policemen, and so bring them out to the game that I was pitching that Saturday. Well, we win the game. Maury Wills had me on his show and everything, so my dad got to see all that. Well, so I wasn't really very much of a fan favorite in Chicago. So after the game's over, shower, come down the steps, and as I come down the steps, there's some fans down below, and they're all booing and yelling at me. Well, two of the policemen that I knew go, "Jim, just play along with us, okay?" Well, the bus would park right next to the gate for the stadium. So you didn't even have to walk outside. You just walked from the stadium onto the bus and done. Well, there was a police car parked right there with the lights on going. And one of the policemen got on each shoulder. And as I walked through the gate with the policeman on each shoulder and putting me into the police car, the fans started cheering. Well, that's because I knew the policeman and they were going to go, "Jim, to play along. We do it." So I thought that was pretty funny. We go to a bar to have a drink after the game. And you could go into this bar, and it was about a 30-foot long bar top. You couldn't see the bar top. All the policemen were in there having a beer, and they take their guns off and lay them on the bar top. I go, "I think I'm in a pretty safe place here."
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes the locals will make sure you get out alive. They'll do everything they can to help you out, right?
Hey, Jim, I want to ask you a question. You and I asked you before. You said it would be okay to bring it up. You had already mentioned when you were growing up that Drysdale and Koufax were your favorites. Okay, what happened? Now, I knew Drysdale had a propensity. Dado said to me, he said Don would have one too many cocktails a lot of times. But I wanted you to tell me what the hell happened on that airplane flight that made the headlines with you and Drysdale. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, what happened was the last week of the season, I pitched 2 weeks before the end of the season. I pitched against Kansas City. We were fighting Kansas City to win the division, and I was pitching the game back there. And Fregosi, before the game, called the whole team together, played this recording on the radio from the owner of the Kansas City Royals, and he turned it up so everybody could hear it. And he was getting all over the Angel organization. We don't deserve to win because we went out and bought players. We did this, we did that, and really downplayed us. Well, I pitched that game. I went out and I pitched a little bit harder than normal. And so now it's supposed to start 5 days later against Kansas City again at our ballpark at home. And if we win this game, we win the division. Well, because I gave a little extra effort during that game in Kansas City, my shoulder, I went up for Ghost. I said, "Jim, I'm going to probably need an extra day or two. My shoulder's a little strained." He said, "Okay." Well, he pitched Frank Tanana. We win the game. We win the game. They go across the street to celebrate. And there was this guy in the ballpark. He had this big cardboard sign walking around the ballpark, and it said, "Flush the Royals. Angels are going to win," this and that. And so you see him walking around the ballpark. Well, the very emotional game, we win. We go across the street afterwards, celebrate. We're in there, celebrate. And this guy with the cardboard sign walks into the restaurant. And I went over to the cardboard sign, and I go, "Yeah, the hell with the Royals." And I went to hit it. Well, it wasn't cardboard. It was an actual toilet seat. And got jammed back in my hand. I broke my knuckle. Went over to the trainer. Go, "Tom, what do I need to do?" And he goes, "Oh, you better get to the hospital." So I go to the hospital. I jammed my knuckle, like I said, about 1.5 inches backwards, and they put a cast on and everything. But now, anyway, we make it to the playoffs, going to play Baltimore. And I'd had one of the better records on our team against Baltimore that year, but I couldn't pitch. So we go back to Baltimore and we lose 2 games. Now we come home, we win a game. And on the flight home, before we come back, we're 0-2. Drysdale, I'm sitting in the back with my wife and a lot of other players and their wives, and the stewardess come back and Mr. Barr, Mr. Drysdale would like to talk to you. I go, oh, he wants to do an interview. So I walk up there and he gets on me, he goes, how come you're not pitching? I go, well, I got this cast on my hand because of my knuckle. I broke it. He goes, no, if you wanted to pitch, you'd take that Band-Aid off and you would pitch. And I go, and I raised my hand up like this, like I was getting ready to hit him. And Bobby Knopp grabbed me and said, Jim, go ahead and go back to your seat. Well, Fregosi stood up, grabbed Drysdale by the shirt and lifted him up out of his chair, and don't you ever talk to one of my players again, and dropped him. Well, that was Drysdale. So now we go home, and one of the other reporters said, Jim, this was all team stuff, reported. Nothing will get in the paper. It's all hidden with I said, okay. I wake up the next morning because we had to be at the ballpark early the next day. I get a telephone call from one of the reporters. I go, Jim, have you seen the paper? I go, no. Go out and grab a paper. So I did. I grabbed the paper, and on the front page of the LA Times, not the front page of the sports page, front page of the LA Times, Barr, Drysdale go at it on plane. I go, oh, great. Well, I get to the ballpark, and Drysdale, he hunts me out, and he goes, Jim, I apologize. I was just being a little over exaggerated, and I apologize for anything. And I said, don't worry, you're still my hero. So we got along fine.
Oh, that's great. That's great. You know what Mickey Rooney used to say? He used to get mad because the reporters would say, Mickey Rooney, 8 marriages. And Mickey Rooney finally said, I'm in the entertainment business. Spell my name right. And that's the same thing for you. Any publicity was good. That's how Mickey always said, whether it was Mickey Rooney, 8 marriages, and Gene Mock used to be pissed because Ross Newham, he hated him. Ross Newham would write, every time he'd write Gene Mock, he'd write, 64 Phillies. And Mock would tell me 40 years later, he's still talking about the 64 Phillies,
Gene Mock, that was the manager I was thinking about in Minnesota. Yeah. Had the bullpens arranged like that. And I complained. He came over and go, who said something about the bullpen mound? Well, Gene Mock, that was the manager, yeah.
Well, you mentioned Jim Fregosi. You joined the Angels, and what a collection of former All-Stars, really, that ended up there. And Jim is your manager, right? After a nice career, what was it like playing for him? And your first year in California, you guys end up winning the division. You get to go in the playoffs, and you mentioned that Baltimore series. Did that put a little more jump in your giddy up? Did that rejuvenate your career?
Well, we had a great team with the Angels that 79 season. Don Baylor, Rod Carew, Al Downing, Rick Miller, Dan Ford. We had Banana. We averaged for the 162 games. We averaged 5.5 runs per game.
Wow.
We could hit, and so it was a great team to play. And for Fregosi, I just ran. We had a good hitting team, and the pitching was pretty good too. And I'll never forget. He would just, at the game would start, he would just sit back and fold his arms and watch a game because he knew what we could do. The only drawback I saw on him was the next year we didn't quite have the offense, and so now he had to make changes, make moves, pitching and stuff like that. And some of it didn't always agree with all the players, but he's the manager. So I'll never forget, the only question I had was he was a little tough on relievers because it happened a couple of times. He'd call down to the bullpen and say, like, get Barr up. Well, I'd throw 2 pitches and he's walking out to the mound. Rather than walk out to the mound and talk to the pitcher and give me some time, he would signal to the bullpen before he even got to the mound halfway there. Well, as soon as you signal, that you have to come as a player. The umpires don't let you say, well, let me throw 2 more. No, you got to come right now.
Yeah.
sometimes you might not have always gotten as many warm-up pitches in as you wanted to get because things were a little different. And we didn't score as many runs in 1980. 81, when they had the players strike, I went up to Edmonton. I played with the Chicago White Sox AAA team up there because the Angels released me. I got my rotator cuff in shape. So I went up there to play. Well, when the major league stopped playing in August, September, during that season, they sent the announcers up to their team. We were playing the AAA Angels up in Edmonton. And who came up to be an announcer? Don Drysdale. Well,
Oh boy, there we go.
Story with us, but we had already talked and been good about it, so we kind of got a laugh out of that.
That's great.
Well, you mentioned a couple of the names. Obviously, Rod Carew, Don Baylor, a young Carney Lansford was on that team. You mentioned Don Ford, a few others. I need to ask you, I mean, just what was it like playing with the Express? I mean,
Yeah.
Did you learn anything with a guy that can throw 12, 15 miles an hour faster than you can on just an average pitch? You know, what was it like with Nolan? And if you don't mind, do you have any stories about, you know, I'm looking at the picture here on the right, you know, behind the umpire, in between the batter, seeing that ball and knowing full well it's coming out at 97, right? Or 103. Either way, it's not going to be an easy thing to do. But he didn't have a great record overall as an Angel, but he was a dominating pitcher. What was that like for you, just being around and seeing this guy just go in day after day and just no hitter and dominate?
Fun to watch. It was fun to watch, especially as a younger player and a new player to the team that first year of 79, was just to try and gather in what his routine was. Of course, Marischal was the worst. If he was pitching that day, don't even look at him.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't like that. He wanted to be in his own world and do it, which is fine. That he was pitching that day. Nolan was the same way, but he wasn't as dominant as don't look at me or talk to me or anything like that. You just knew to leave him alone. But if he wasn't pitching that day, what a great guy. We would share rides to the ballpark. One day I'd drive and pick him up, and the next day he would drive and pick me up, and we just go back and forth, and the wires went accordingly.
Okay.
And a great guy to talk to about different things. In fact, he told me when I broke my knuckle, and the next morning when he had to pick me up, go to the ballpark, he goes, "What happened to you?" And of course I told him everything. He goes, "Well, tell the doctor." He goes, "I did something similar, and they just gave me a shot in my hand to deaden that finger." And so I thought, "Oh, okay, interesting." So I talked to the doctor. I said, "Nolan said you could probably give me a shot and deaden part of my hand." He goes, "Jim, if you were an outfielder, we could do that but as a pitcher, you need the fine touch of all your fingers on the ball and where you're going to throw it in their hand. So as a pitcher, that'd be kind of tough to do." Nolan was different. So I said, "Okay, I understand." He goes, "But in 2 weeks, if we make it to the World Series and move on in the playoffs, we'll consider maybe doing that." So
Yeah.
great guy to watch it. I had to come into a game one time after it was in the 7th inning. He had a no-hitter going, but we were winning the game. And then he gave up a couple of hits, but we were winning the game 7-0. And so they brought me in the game right behind him. And the first guy I faced, I give up a hit, and the fans started booing. And I went, "Oh, that's not good." Got out of that situation quick.
Yeah. Well, Don Ossie was a part of that staff. Mark Clear,
Yep.
Steve Eddy, Mike Barlow. Who am I missing? Dylan or Dyer Miller, John Montague, Frank Tanana, of course. You mentioned him. Dave LaRoche, Chris Knapp, Dave Frost. Pretty good pitching staff, right? But you guys could hit. That's the thing. And then the next year, what everybody just forget to pitch and hit because you guys really struggled at 80 season.
Yeah, we did. It was we'd gotten Nolan was gone. I think Frank was gone too. A couple other guys, and then offensively, we just didn't produce like we did the year before, and so we had to struggle a little bit more. But yeah, that was different. But it was just such a. I'll never forget that. Just playing with those guys. the funniest thing was Don Baylor, Merv Retman was so good at sarcastically getting on you if you made a bad swing or did something. He would stand there at the dugout and meet you halfway and go, "What the heck was that?" And of course, you had to kind of smile and get rid of the fact that you were so mad you made an out or whatever the situation was.
Right.
He would do it. He would do it to Don Baylor so good. In a way, you wanted Don to strike out or do something wrong, so he could come back and listen to Merv Retman get all over him. And that was the type of team we had. We were so loose and doing stuff like that. It was just a fun team to be on.
Yeah. Well, you end your career back in San Francisco. Frank Robinson is now the manager there. You got 2 more years in you. First and foremost, was it interesting for you, or was it a different vibe when you go there? When you go back, you're back at home. Technically, you'd already spent a decade there in San Francisco, and you go back for those last couple of years. What was that like for you specifically?
It was no different. I mean, it felt better to be home naturally because I lived there full time, and it was nice to be back there because I've spent first 10 years in that ballpark, so it was no big deal. The only thing I remember was being, coming in as a starter. I was mostly a starter, then I came in as a reliever. And so that it's a little bit different feeling. So I had to get used to being more of a reliever instead of just starting one game and then relieve one game, mostly relieving with a spot start here and there. So I had to get used to that. And of course, I've been through so many years with the Giants, different types of ball clubs, different type of managers. It was a little bit different playing for Frank, because Frank was a good guy, good coach, and everything, but how he handled players sometimes was a little different.
Yeah, he's got his finger pointing right at you here in this picture that I had. I don't know if you remember this altercation, but this is definitely a very serious moment in your career, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I kind of remember that. What happened? You got to go back a couple of weeks, because early in the year, Greg Minton was our right-handed closer and Gary Lavelle was our left-handed closer. Well, early in the year, Minton would struggle. So I kind of took over the right-handed closing role, not consistently, but a little bit more so than normal, and kind of bypassed for the first couple of months. Minton, well, we go on a road trip to Cincinnati, and I'm pitching the game, and I'm winning the game 3-1. And Kingman, we're in New York. In Cincinnati, same thing. We were winning the game, and I get called out for a reliever. And Minton comes in and walks a couple guys, give a cover. We lose the game 4-3. And oh man, I had that game won. So I told the general manager, I kind of thought I should have stayed in to at least face the leadoff hitter, even though he's left-handed. He wasn't a power guy, and I get left-handers out because of my sinker. He goes, yeah, I kind of thought you should have stayed in the game too. So now we go to New York, and same thing. We're winning the game. I think it was 4-2. And Kingman comes up, and I went to school with Dave. I knew what Dave was. He had already hit 2 home runs in the game, but not off me. So I said, well, shoot, I'm not going to give him a chance to hit another home run because the guy on deck is a lifetime 200 hitter. I'm going to face that guy rather than Kingman. So I kind of pitch around Kingman, put him on first base. The next hitter comes up. There was 2 Brian Giles. This was Brian Giles, the little outfielder, and he was hitting 200 at the time. And I go, well, I'm going to face him. And I don't walk very many guys. So the first pitch I throw to him is a ball. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I see Frank coming out. I go, you got to be kidding me. And so he gets all the way out, and I go, God. And I did. And when I coach, I tell every pitcher I come out to the mound, if I'm taking out, you give me the ball. And I did what you're not supposed to do. And I apologize later for it. I flipped him the ball. I didn't hand it to him. I flipped it to him. Well, he grabbed me with one hand and spun me around on the mound and said, you don't leave this mound. I make the decisions around here. And I looked right at him and go, yeah, and they're blankety blank decisions too. Well, he didn't like that. So then he started poking me in the chest. And I said, don't poke me in the chest out here. And so Minton he'd already called in Minton. And Man, Greg was standing behind the mound. He goes, there was no way in hell I was going up on that mound with you still standing there.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he told me not to leave till he told me to leave. Well, I stood there for about 30 seconds, which seemed 3 minutes. And I'm standing there. So I walk to the dugout, sit down a couple of feet away from where Frank's sitting. And I put my jacket on. Well, inning ends. Well, what happened in the inning ends? I get up to go into the clubhouse, but I put the wrong jacket on. I put somebody's real short jacket on. So I'm taking the jacket off. While I'm taking the jacket off, I turn to Frank and I go, Frank, that wasn't too cool what went on out there. I apologize. He goes, get the hell out of my dugout right now. So here come all the players. They think we're going to go at it in the dugout. Well, we don't. I walk into the clubhouse. I get on the phone and I call the general manager, Tom Haller. I said, Tom, you better come down in the clubhouse because if he says one word to me, good things aren't going to happen. He said, okay, just sit in front of your locker. And I said, okay. So game's over. We win the game. And you could hear a pin drop in that clubhouse. Nobody was saying a word. And here comes Frank. He walks by. And he doesn't even look at me. And then Haller comes in. He goes, Jim, come on in. So I go in. The three of us are sitting at the table. And I said, Frank, I apologize. I was wrong. What I did was totally wrong. But I think what you did was wrong, too. Well, he didn't like that. So he told me to get out of his office. And it took us about 2 weeks to get over everything. And we were fine after that. Yeah, that was good.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something. Frank Robinson, you have a lot of, because Frank Robinson was always considered a badass. And you know what Warren Spahn used to tell me? You never throw close to him. He would stand right on top of the plate, 2 inches away from the plate with skinny legs. And Spahn said, if you ever throw close to him and wake him up, it's like a sleeping dog. You don't wake him up. He if you brush him back, he's way better. And Warren Spahn told me this. I represented Warren Spahn. He said to me, Bobby, one day he's had about 5 Heinekens. And I say, Warren, who's the greatest the greatest competitor you ever saw? The greatest. And he said, only one guy. He said, Frank Robinson. He said, I'm going to tell you a story. He said, we're playing in Crosley Field in Cincinnati, a doubleheader. He said, Frank Robinson slid into Eddie Matthews at third base, feet high, and Eddie hit him in the head and knocked him out. He couldn't see out of one eye. And they took him off the field, okay? The second game, he said Frank Robinson made a diving catch down the right field line to rob a guy out of a triple, and he hit one on the Chinese laundry roof behind the left field fence to win the game. So he said, that's the kind of a competitor Frank Robinson. He said he never saw anybody like him. He said you'd never throw at him because you'd wake him up. And the guy had balls, man. He would stand right on, and they didn't block. When he broke in 56, blocks weren't real popular, as we know. He would stand over the plate and defy pitchers to throw at him. I mean, so the fact that you challenged that is pretty good.
In fact, it was funny because the players, the infielders, how they all come to the mound when the manager walks out there. Well, when that all started, they said they took about 3 steps back away from the mound. They wanted to get out of the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because I told you, King and I went to school together. We were friends there. And he was on first base when it happened. He goes, Jim, I started walking in toward the mound, too, in case there was something happening. I go, oh, I'm glad you didn't get involved.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I'm glad nothing that bad happened. And you had a great career.
Hey, the altercations you had, just happened to be with 2 Hall of Famers, Don Drysdale and Frank Robinson. You didn't pick tomato cans to get in fights with.
Yeah, you didn't get fight with Harper LeBel or Bob Case. You got the real guys, right? You got the real McCoys.
Bill Madlock.
Yeah, Bill, four-time batting champion. Yeah.
Well, after your career is over, you go to Sacramento State. Tell us a little bit about that, and then obviously your high school, your association with just helping the kids out now.
Well, Sac State, I played summer ball with an older team, and one of the managers on that older team was John Smith, the head coach at Sac State. And one year he asked me, he goes, hey, why don't you come join us and coach with me? I went, I got my business here. I got to do that. Well, the next year we're doing it again. And I was actually thinking about selling my business. So he asked me again if I want to do it. And I said, yeah, let's talk about it. So that was in 1980, 84. I went to Sac State to be the pitching coach. I was there for 16 years and enjoyed every second of it.
That's great.
And you're helping kids, right? You're just, instructing and working on fine tuning some things and finding some flaws and making some corrections. The next thing you know, the kids are trying to play a little bit better, and hopefully they have a chance to move on. Is there a couple of guys that end up getting in the minor league systems or made it to the majors?
Yeah, we had a catcher, Knapp. Aaron Knapp was a catcher for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He was there for about 4 or 5 years. And then we've got a right-handed pitcher who got drafted, I think, in the 4th round last year. The Brewers, Chase Bentley. So he's got and he could be going there. And then another one of our pitching coach, his boy, and is with the. He's got a shot at going to AAA. They should, depending on how they're doing toward the end of the year. He had a really good year last year, so we could have a couple of guys up there here within this year.
Oh, that's
Love
great.
it. Absolutely love it. Well, Jim, do you get to play some golf every now and then? What do you do for fun? What keeps you busy nowadays?
Yeah, the coaching naturally, and then I do play some golf. I just played for the first time last week, for the first time in about 3.5 months, because I had a year ago, I had my left knee replaced. And then 2 months after that, I had my right shoulder replaced. And I'm going in August. I had my right hip replaced about 18 years ago. In August, I'm going in to have my left hip replaced.
Oh my God.
Trying to get a lot.
Oh boy, got the dogs in. Here we go. Bob's got 2 of the biggest German Shepherds you've ever seen in your life.
Right.
Yeah, they're amazing. Well, if you were 20 years old, I'd say you're the bionic man, right? You've got all these new parts. You could probably pitch me.
Yeah, it's fun because I didn't have anything really wrong when I was pitching. And then all of a sudden, when I was at Sac State for 16 years, you throw a lot of batting practice. And now at the high school, you throw a lot of batting practice.
Sure.
So I told him, I got to get some new parts if I'm going to keep doing this.
Well, I hope your pension and the Major League Baseball benefit package allows for new shoulders and rotator cuffs and knees and hips, right?
Big good.
You had a great career, Jim, and thank you for being with us here today. Bob, final thoughts here before we head out.
It was just great hearing all these stories, and I did not know Jim's brother, who he was. Now I know he played in the big leagues too. What a great thing. You always learn something, and it was hearing these stories, the Frank Robinson story, all these stories. I love these stories. That's what baseball is reflections and stories and name. And as you're talking, Jim, I'm thinking about all the great players you were with or against, you played against or teammates of. Just unbelievable. It's like a who's who. And you're one of them. So you had a great career, and you should be very proud of what you did. And I'm proud to know you and call you a friend. And thank you so much for coming on this podcast. It really will be.
Thank you. It's always fun. One thing makes it fun for me too is I get to relive some of these stories, and it kind of makes me enjoy that too.
And I loved hearing about your daughters being soccer players. That's great.
Yeah, they're continuing to coach, and they enjoyed it. My youngest daughter, my oldest daughter, when I was work out during the off season, I got her a catcher's glove. And she could catch me at 12 years old. She could catch me at full as long as I threw the ball where I said I was going to throw it.
Yeah, unbelievable. Wow.
Well, Jim, we can't thank you enough for spending some of your valuable time with us. Obviously, getting to ride to and from work every other day, whether you're driving Nolan Ryan or him driving you, and Don Baylor and Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and many of the others that you didn't mention that were just as important in your career, or at least guys that you befriended and really value. We thank you for all of that here today. It's been a pleasure having you on. You're a 2-time national champion. You've got to play. You went over 100 games in your 12-year Major League career, and thank you for all that you did to make Major League Baseball and baseball in general a better game to play, because you were part of it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it too. You bet.
Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in here today. This has been the 100 Yards of Football platform, but this is the sports page with Bob Case. We want to thank you for being a part of today's show. Bob and I, we get together every week and we have different guests on and we talk a little bit about their careers and some important things. And you learn a little bit about the lessons of life and what they've learned. And maybe that would help everybody else as well. We appreciate you being a part of it. If you like the show, please subscribe, tell a friend. And we just want to say thank you for tuning in to 100 Yards of Football. We hope everybody